We are speaking about Africa because we are in Africa and because we are focusing on the continent of Africa. When I came in, the devotion also said that there are diseases in Africa. True, but there are diseases everywhere. So let it be understood in that context. Today, I dare say that one of the greatest problems that bedevils Africa is religion. It is one of the things that debilitates Africa. Africa now finds ourselves in a space where many believe, wrongly in my view, that all our problems will be solved through prayer and fasting. Wrong. The divine instruction, as I understand it, was go ye and subdue the earth, and by the sweat of thy brow thou shalt eat. There is no shortage in Kenya, even those of you who came from outside. We have seen many crusades in billboards in Nairobi, Kenya. When you travel across Africa, there is no shortage of individuals going by different names. Prophet, prophetess. And yet those of you who are students of theology will be told that the age of prophethood ended, some say with John the Baptist, some say with Micah, but they are prophetess and prophets. There is no shortage of apostles running around Africa producing rabbits out of hats in the name of fake miracles. There is no shortage of them. That is part of the African problem, but we do not want to confront it, particularly you theologians. You do not want to confront it. There is now a theology in Africa of making people feel good without making them good. That is wrong theology. It is unbiblical and is dangerous to Africa. Because the Bible that I read does not say it. The Bible that I read is specific and unequivocal. The Bible that I read also tells me in Matthew 24:24 that in the last day there'll be many Christs. They'll come, and they are coming now, many of them. They shall work wonders, and that they would even lead the very elect, but for divine intervention. That Bible I read, and I suspect we also read the same Bible. The Bible that I read in Paul's second letter to Timothy at 3 also tells me that in the last day there shall be a form of Christianity where people will be lovers of themselves, and they would cheat everybody just like Jannes and Jambres did to Moses in the desert. I read that Bible. I also read another Bible verse in the Bible, Romans 1:30, that people shall be lovers of themselves, and they will have committed all sins, and they manufacture new sins like LGBTQ. So nowadays I go to church and pastors are equivocating. My own church, I saw in England the clergy coming complete with a dog's collar, apologizing for people who are engaged in LGBTQ. Saying that God loves them. Yes, He does, but God does not love sin. And the last time I checked, and the Bible has not been revised, one of the reasons why Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed was because they engaged in those. So, when you ask me to talk about the role of theology and the problems bedeviling Africa, I'm situating my presentation in those biblical verses, which are clear and unequivocal. Africa and Africans, like all peoples, face numerous problems, and human beings face numerous problems. We seldom forget, but we must never forget that this continent and our people were enslaved. We must never forget that. You must never forget that 18 million Africans were taken from the eastern part of Africa into the Arab world, and men were castrated. You must never forget that. Because the effect of it is with us today. We must never forget that over 12 million Africans were taken to the Caribbean, taken to Europe and America. We must never forget that. We must never forget that in Southern Africa, the apartheid regime was underwritten through verses from the Bible by the Dutch Reformed Church. We must never forget that. Upon a theology based in the Bible. Fact. We must never forget that the Roman Catholic Church was involved in slavery, and they have apologized for it. We must never forget that the Church of England was involved in slavery, and they have apologized for it, using the Bible. Theology. Slaves, obey your masters like you obey Christ. In the Bible. Not revised. You go and read it. There is a verse like that. So when we talk about theology and African problems, we must remember that the effects of slavery are alive and with us today. When slavery was gone, it is Christians again, William Wilberforce. And I can, through history, see him standing in the House of Commons saying that slavery should be abolished, but that Africans should not be freed even when slavery is abolished and slave trade. After slavery, colonization came. And as I speak to you, Europeans sat in Berlin in 1884 and 1885 and divided Africa into spheres of influence. Africa was a hunting ground, divided amongst the British, the Italians, the Dutch, the French, the Belgians, the Germans. And today we are in this assembly. I'm using English language which was imposed on us. And those of you who come from English-speaking countries, you refer to as Anglophone. Those of you who come from French-speaking countries, you are referred to as Francophone. And those from Portuguese are referred to as Lusophone. Soon there'll be Sinophone. We don't speak Yoruba. I'm not speaking Yoruba. I'm not speaking Kiswahili. There is no Kiswahili interpreter here. There are only French and Portuguese and English. Part of the African problem. We are confused. When my friend resisted their being called a perfect Frenchman, I could understand his anger. Because the colonial project was a dehumanizing and humiliating process. And religion and theology were at the heart of it. That is why when the European colonizer, we used to be taught in school that the flag followed the cross. I went to Zanzibar and a young man was taking me through the dungeons and he showed me there was the school where they taught Africans that they may use them in their labor. There is the church that they touch their spirit that they may be spiritually confused. And there is the hostel where they treated them that they may use them as labor. I'd never heard such interpretation. That is why when theology came, we were told that in order to be a Christian, you must be John or James or Joel. You cannot be Taiwo now. That is not a Christian name. Christian name must be John, Joseph. Who said? Whose theology is it? Who said that in order to be a Christian, you must be John? Who said it? That is jaundiced theology. That is racist theology. Because when you want to change a person, you give him your name. Those of you who have watched Roots will know this. Alex Haley's Roots. You capture Kunta Kinte and in order to dehumanize him, you call him Toby. That is also theology. So, African problem is also colonization. So as we speak now, there are Nigerians here. There are Ghanaians here. There are Congolese, Democratic Republic of Congo, and then there is Congo, named after Ferdinand de Brazza, called Brazzaville. I look forward to the day they change Brazzaville's name. At least they changed Leopoldville into Kinshasa. This is the reality. This is part of the problem. The Democratic Republic of Congo will never know peace because of religion, Roman Catholicism, and colonization. These are the problems bedeviling Africa. And we never say it. King Leopold of the Belgians caused 13 million Congolese to be killed. But we Africans have forgotten. Part of the African problem is short memory, amnesia is part of our problem. And that is why we keep on repeating the same mistakes time and over. Colonization is part of the problem that affects Africa. Because after colonization ended, we have another thing called Neocolonization. And it is alive and well. That thing called neocolonization is alive and well. And if you doubted whether it's alive and well, I want you to see what is happening in Guinea-Conakry. I want you to see what is happening in Niger. I want you to see what is happening in Burkina Faso. I want you to see what is happening in Chad. And I want you to see the arrogance of the French president when he says, my ambassador shall not leave, my bases shall not be removed. The neo-colonial project is alive and well. Did you hear the voice of the church throughout what is happening in Guinea-Bissau? No, the church is silent. The church is complicit. So when you talk about theology and what it can do, sometimes courtesy of theology, because you want to be good, you don't raise your voices. The last time I checked, John the Baptist's voice was alive and well in the wilderness. Where is the voice of the church amidst all this? Africa's problem is also neocolonization. From slavery to colonization to neocolonization, which is an ongoing project. And Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah was right in 1965 when he said, the last stage of colonization is neocolonization, and is alive and well. And we see it. Today, I tell Africans, because of neocolonization, I'll come to what I think theologically. Today in Africa, here in Nairobi, Kenya, if you want to buy something from a supermarket, you go to Carrefour, which is French. You want to buy fuel, you go to Total Energies or Rubies, which is French. You want to have your pizza, which is made by Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is American. You have it carried by Glovo, which is Spanish. If you want to have security, you have it by G4S, which is British. If you want your home guarded, is guarded by KK, which is Gardewald from Quebec. If you want to have chicken, is Kentucky Fried Chicken. If you want your airports managed, is Swissport from Switzerland. That is the state of Africa. Consuming what we do not produce and producing what we do not consume. The colonialist comes under different guises, but they kill your spirit to survive. So Africa is bedeviled by all these things. And until the scale falls from our eyes and the wax melts from our ears, we will not go anywhere. In Africa, we have some of the lowest quality politicians. African countries say that they are democratic, they are kakistocratic. And kakistocracy is a government of the very worst. You are led by your very worst. That is kakistocracy. If you combine that with kleptocracy, which is a government of thieves, then you can see why Africa continued to punch below her weight. In all areas, we continue to do so. We must not, in the name of political correctness, now say, oh, because we want IMF and World Bank to help Africa, therefore we must say, but God loves everybody. Yes, indeed He does. But He tells you to do things in a particular way. If we allow aberrations to be mainstreamed, then there is no sin. We are getting into a level where there is no untruth. Everything is right. Everything depends. That is the theology that is now beginning to emerge from Europe and America. Is going to be the dominant theology. And is going to have everything pegged on it. Uganda has had aid cut from it because the Ugandan president has spoken about it. We are still talking about the problems bedeviling Africa. IMF is saying we are inclusive. It is the same people who came here in 1800s and gave us the penal code which had some sex against the order of nature. That was the offense. Sex against the order of nature. Now tell me, when did nature change? Yeah, tell me when nature changed. And we must say this whether people are angry or not. Because if we want to change Africa, we must not fear to speak the truth as we know it.